Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of the At the Pylon podcast. Alongside Chandler Betts, my name is Nick Antonakas. Chandler, it's the moment everybody has been waiting for. We have our Patriots dream offseason analysis. I guess you ready to dive into this? I mean, there's not really much time to waste here.
Let's go. So ready.
The main thing that we're going to be doing on our episode here, we're not really centering on the draft because obviously our next episode is going to be a first round mock draft episode. So stay tuned for that. Obviously, throughout our offseason plans for the Patriots, we're going to have some hints as to who we think they're going to be drafting or who we want them to draft at least. But these are very much dream scenarios for both of us. They're not extremely unrealistic by any means, but if all this stuff happened, that would be an A++ on my offseason category card. So without further ado, Chandler, let's dive right into it. I'll start us off. We have three categories. How it's going to work is we have the restructuring phase, we have the re-signing phase, and then we have the new signing phase. Throughout each of these, I guess, paths, we're going to react after each portion. So 3 parts to each plan, and we'll react to each other's between each part. So without further ado, let's not waste any more time. We'll dive right into my Patriots offseason plan. And here it is. My Patriots dream offseason. Chandler went a lot more sweaty than I did. He made a PowerPoint. So I'm excited to see that. Regardless, mine, I did some nice colored text here to introduce us, but let's just move into part one. So moving into part one, the top thing to consider, I'll just move it down so you can see the whole thing. Working down the cap is the first thing. So we start out after our most recent transition tag. That news came out yesterday that Patriots signed Kyle Duggar to a transition tag. I just had them signing that to like a 3-year, about a $13 million contract, about the same as his tag is right now, just over multiple years. We end up with $88,751,054 in cap space. So, plenty of cap after the Duggar signing. So, to make some more cap, I have the Patriots doing these moves. To start off, I have some cuts. Marco Wilson, he goes down, saves $3.3 million. Jermichael Hasty, saves about $1.3 million. Connor McDermott, goodbye, $1.2 million in our bank. Joe Giles Harris, $985,000. That's for the rest of these guys, pretty much. Michael Jordan, Tristan Hill, Keshawn Vaughn, William Bradley King, all cutting all those guys saves us $985,000. And the thing is, without all these cuts so far, no dead cap whatsoever. The only cut I have us making that sacrifices a little bit of dead cap is Dan Aquale, $300,000 in dead cap. Really nothing, but it still saves us $1.38 million. And by the end of just those cuts alone, we're already back to almost $101 million in cap space, just a little bit under with $100,999,113. So, obviously, great cap space, but we're not done. Juju Smith-Schuster is going to be our first restructure here. I have us restructuring 3 contracts in our offseason. Juju Smith-Schuster restructuring his contract saves us almost $3 million, about $2.9 million, I'd say. Matt Judon, Mr. GM Matt Judon would be more than willing to adjust his contracts, especially considering he's going to make the same amount of money anyway. Saves us about $2.6 million in a restructure with him. And then finally, Jawan Bentley restructuring his deal saves us about another $1.1 million. That brings us up to a grand total of $107,716 and $613. God, I can't speak. So that is our restructuring. As I'll say, when we get down to the trades here, I really did want us to trade away Juju Smith-Schuster, but his contract is just so bad. I was like, there's no way anybody's going to take him. So I have us trading Devontae Parker. He's currently been surrounding in trade rumors recently. News broke this last week that the Patriots would be seeking, or at least dangling him in trade offers was the term used. Even if it was for a late round pick. I used a trade calculator on the same website that did all these uh cap things to grade trades. And
Fancy.
although this had us losing the trade, I would take it any day. Devontae Parker to the Green Bay Packers. We get a 2024 fourth round pick. This saves us about $3.3 million. We're obviously going to lose about $3.1 million in dead cap, but we can do a lot more money than we could without it. So, especially with Parker in place, really did not do much for this team last year. Uh, a disgruntled force in the locker room, to say the least. So getting rid of him, despite the dead cap, I thought was worth it. That saves us about $3.3 million, as I said, bringing us up to over $111 million in cap space. So, especially considering a fourth round pick, I take that. I do it for a sixth. But
Yeah.
this trade calculator seemed that would be a good deal for the Packers. So I was like, all right, sure. Um, like I said before, definitely would have rather gotten rid of Juju. But like I said, I just couldn't muster it up. Even no matter what the trade calculator said, I was like, this is just like highway
No one's
robbery.
gonna
If we
want him.
dump,
No one's gonna want him. Yeah.
yeah, if we dump Juju's contract onto someone, like that's highway robbery. There's no way. So regardless, my next trade, Mac Jones shipping out of New England. I think you and I both have us trading Mac Jones, but we'll see the details
We'll
of your
see.
trade after.
We'll see.
We shall see. I have Mac Jones going to the Denver Broncos for a 2024 fifth round pick. That's the 144th pick overall. Saves us $2.7 million. We're going to lose about $2.1 million, but considering the dumpster fire that this last season was with Mac Jones, you almost have to do that. Brings us up to over $113 million in cap space. Definitely would have thought that we would have been getting more for a guy like Mac Jones if you took us back to the trade rumors that were circulating last summer. Um, I really honestly could see us getting as high as a third rounder for him this year. It really depends how much the quarterback market heats up. But honestly, I could see us getting as low as a seventh. I don't even know anymore. I wrote. So
Yeah.
I just middle walled it at fifth. So my culminating cap heading into our offseason here before we dive into part two is $113,000,000, 835,355. I cannot speak. So above $113 million. Chandler, thoughts on my cuts and moves?
I really don't know if anyone's gonna want Devontae Parker at that cap hit. So as we'll
Yeah.
see in mine, I did not trade Devontae Parker. Simple as that for that one. Regarding restructures, I didn't want to restructure anybody actually because I didn't want more money to be moved into the future. I was happy with the amount of money that we had right now. I didn't need to gain more money to further my moves that I wanted to make. So I think that my offseason might have a little bit more flexibility for the future, but I think that those are the three that I would make if I were to make restructures.
Yeah, that's actually a good point that you make, Chandler. I was thinking about that going back and forth. But I did ultimately decide, as you'll see here with my signings, that I did need that little extra boost in money,
Okay.
especially to make up for our draft pick money, which I didn't account in technically, but I left money at the end to sign our draft picks with.
Yes.
So regardless, we'll see when that time comes. Part
Mhm.
two, retaining assets. So out of all the Patriots that are heading into free agency this year, I had us re-signing a good bulk of them. The first and probably most expensive, Mike Owenu, 4 years, $66 million, $16.5 million annual cap hit. Really, my justification behind this is I looked at the top 10 offensive linemen in the league right now. The lowest, number 10 on that list, was making around $18 million. We really need to bring back Owenu. It's going to be an extremely competitive market. He's the top, probably interior, but honestly can play anything kind of lineman going into this offseason. So you really got to fight to bring him back. Um, and that I think is going to take a big deal, like $66 million over 4 years. Sure, it's a little bit high. I wouldn't be afraid to sign a winner for 4 years. He's young. By the end of this deal, I think that maybe you can look for other options. But regardless, I think he'll be able to serve out that full 4 years. And it'll work out good for the Patriots because at the end of the day, you really need your best offensive lineman, the really only bright spot or consistent bright spot of your offensive line last year to stay. So I have a Wenu coming back, 4 years, 66 million. Hunter Henry, I have us bringing back Hunter Henry, 2 years, 13 million, $6.5 million annual cap hit. Um, a little bit cheap of a deal, I'd say, especially considering how bad the tight end market is this offseason. Hunter Henry's like top three, if not top two tight ends, probably on the free agent market this year. So that's something to consider. But regardless, I have us roping him back for $6.5 million. I think he liked his time here in New England. I don't really think he's going to be like a hot commodity for anybody else. So giving him 6.5 a year, I think will be enough to retain him. Next up, Kendrick Bourne, a player that I've gone back and forth on a lot this past offseason. Um, Obviously coming off an ACL tear, not a lot of certainty around like what he's going to offer next year, but basing off this previous year alone, he was a very talented wide receiver who was looking to get a big payday this offseason. Um, Reluctant to resign, obviously, because of the ACL tear, but I gave him a 2 year, $16 million deal. Some would say that's very cheap, but honestly, I really think that because of that ACL, it's going to be a huge turnoff from the market, even in a weaker wide receiver class that this year is offering. Um, I think we'll be able to retain Bourne for $8 million a year. Plus, he loves Pat's Nation. I talked to him when I was at the NFL Honors. It seems like he wants to return, but also at the same time, he's been very advocating for himself on Instagram. He's very much like, who's going to pay me? Like, come sign me. I will bring like this to your organization, blah, blah, blah. So he's very much marketing for himself at the same time. The Patriots currently have an offer on the table for him right now. We don't know any details behind that, but there is an offer on the table right now, and it hasn't been rejected, at least as of this recording. So we'll have him back 2 years, 16 million in my plan. Next up, Anthony Jennings, 3 years, $12 million. This is the Uche replacement at a much cheaper cap hit. I think he's going to go under a lot of people's radars this offseason. I'd be willing to give him around $5 to $5.5 million to keep him around. I honestly think that we could get him for somewhere around four, just because of the fact that not a lot of teams are going to be looking at him, but he's a star-studded talent. I think he's finally living up to those expectations that we had all the way back when we drafted him in 2020.
Yeah.
He could be a really good piece for this team. So I have us from bringing him back for 3 years. Mac Wilson, 2 years, $6 million. He loves Gerard Mayo. He was probably the number one Gerard Mayo advocate in the locker room this year. He
Yeah.
better stick around to see his head coaching days. So I have him coming back for a $3 million annual cap hit per year. So yeah, not much to say about that. He's a good player. He'll probably have an increased role with Mayo in charge too. Miles Bryant, 2 years, $7.5 million, $3.75 million annual cap hit. Um, I would definitely bring him back for this kind of money. I think I'd bring him back for maybe a little bit more than this. I don't know how much more I'd fight, considering that we do have a pretty deep cornerback room. Definitely won't have us being investing in any new cornerbacks this offseason, because our locker room proved that despite being banged up like we were last year, we were an extremely strong cornerback room. If you haven't seen our Patriots grading episode, make sure to
Mhm.
go check that out for our grades. But we both graded the locker room, the cornerbacks very high. So can only imagine what it means for this year with healthy Jonathan Jones, healthy Marcus Jones, healthy Christian Gonzalez, of course, and Miles
Mhm.
Bryant slotting in there around three would be big. So I have him coming back 2 years, $7.5 million. Pharaoh Brown, 2 years, $4 million. He's young, maybe a little bit of an overpay, but like whatever. We could probably get him for less. But at this stage, it's not like we're crunching for every single dollar. I'd be good with signing him for a 2 million annual, so that's fine with me. He's gonna slot into that tight end two spot. Goodbye, Mike Gesicki. We're not resigning you. And I think he's worth a multi-year deal, considering that he's young and he proved himself this past year. So why not? Jalen Rager, 1 year, 1 million. I did not feel like looking up the league minimum, but I think he's probably going to get the
For
league minimum.
Jalen Rager, it's a 1.125.
Okay, so I just like rounded it up to
Yeah.
rounded it down, I should say, to 1 million. But we'll give him his league minimum, 1.125, whatever it is. Um, Big part of our special teams last year when he joined the squad midway through the year. He's going to help fill that Matthew Slater void. Maybe if he plays on both sides of special teams. Honestly, on offense, I could see him slotting in over Tyquan Thornton, who has been an extreme disappointment. Rager, another tall, fast wide receiver. So get him in there. I'd like to see him back. And obviously at league minimum. I don't think anybody else is really going to be looking at him. Ezekiel Elliott, 1 year, $3 million. I think he's a solid running back 2 option. With Mondre back full strength, I think that'll be a prime role for him at RB2. Considering how deep this free agency running back class is, I definitely think that he's going to go under the radar of a lot of teams. There are a lot of good running backs available this offseason, so I think we can get away with getting him for only $3 million. If not, whatever, just draft a running back. Like, doesn't matter. Kevin Harris, I think, is also a pretty serviceable RB2, especially if we strengthen our offensive line. But Zeke, obviously, a good amount better than a guy like Kevin Harris, so I'd like to bring him back. Then finally, my last re-signing, Cody Davis, 2 years, $3 million. He's the new veteran special teamer. You have to keep him around. He had a great season last year, and by the end of this, we're at $64.58535 million in cap space. And Chandler, before we move into part 3, what are your thoughts on my re-signings?
I think there's some interesting ones here. I think generally I agree. The biggest one that I would have to say is, wow, that is a big contract for Onwenu.
Yeah.
I have us resigning him as well. I'll talk about that, but it's not nearly as big a contract as that. If that's the case, if that's what it has to be, I think kind of so be it. But also, I'm not thrilled about it. I think that it is a deep enough tackle class that if you somehow have to, if you can't make that happen, it's not the end of the world. But you obviously want to keep such a talented player and a corner piece of that offensive line in Onwenu for long term. And I agree with the 4 years as well. That's where I sat as well.
Yeah, well, I think that it's going to go to show here in my free agent signings how important offensive line is, considering who I'd want us to draft this year. Wink, wink.
Sure.
So that I think is going to be extremely pivotal for the Patriots, and we'll see here in my free agency signings. So part 3, we're bringing in new talents. My new signings, starting off, Tyron Smith, tackle out of Dallas, 3 years, $57 million, $19 million annual cap hit, big contracts, another big one. He's the top tackle on the market right now. Trent Brown upgrade is an understatement. We need to invest in this O line, as I was saying, for a new quarterback. Don't make that same mistake that we made with Mac these past 2 years. You could say that age is a little bit of a concern. He's 33 years old, but just weigh it on guaranteed money at the start. I know Chandler did a much bigger breakdown than I did like this, but I don't know like the logistics behind it. Just literally just push guaranteed money to the beginning so you have an out later. But you might not even need it. It's only 3 years. Could retire as a Patriot. You never know. Tyron Smith, extremely talented O lineman. You need him. He'd be a beast, especially alongside of Wenner. We'd have like a really good O line. And we're not done. I have us going Kevin Dotson, a guard, 2 years, $16 million. Starting interior lineman. I think he could bump out a guy like City Sao or Antonio Mafi. Probably Sao would get that last spot. Mafi would be like the 6th man. Totally fine with that. That'd be an extremely strong offensive line. You could say that this is kind of an overpay. I don't really care. We really need offensive line help. And everybody who was kind of like bashing our O-line last year, that was atop my criticism list, is really going to be biting themselves if we don't make improvements. So just you have the money, spend the money, get a better line. It'll work out, hopefully. And Kevin Dotson, he's young, 27 years old, a very talented guy for the Rams. They'd love to keep him, obviously, it seems, but it seems like he's going to have a test on the market. So I have us bringing in Dotson. My next one, a little bit of a questionable one. I have us going Odell Beckham Jr.,
Yeah.
wide receiver out of Baltimore. 1 year, $9 million. I just don't think it's worth paying top dollar for Ridley. He's the top wide receiver on the market this year. But he's not even really a true wide receiver 1. We saw him get shifted into that role in Jacksonville. He made some dynamic plays, sure, but he couldn't hold up to that wide receiver 1 status. Odell, on the other hand, he's a little bit older. a little bit under the radars of other people, but he can still offer that dynamic play when you need it. And that's what I feel the Patriots lack the most. You got a guy like Demario Douglas, who's your consistent catcher. You can hopefully have a guy like Kendrick Bourne back to be, your mid to deep route runner. And then you have a bang bang guy like Odell Beckham Jr. who's running down the field, drawing defenders. Uh, I think that would be huge. Also, he's a seasoned vet. He could help a younger wide receiver in the locker room if we choose to draft one. Wink, wink. So that could be another thing that Odell could help with. Also, only a year, so God forbid he sucks. Whatever. It's not a Juju Smith-Schuster thing where you get locked in for multiple years. That was a terrible deal. Last but not least, Jacoby Brissett, 1 year, $10 million. He's the bridge guy. Obviously, former Patriot. I would love to see Joe Flacco come in too, but I really think he's set on staying with the Browns. I talked to him at the NFL Honors too. He was very passionate about staying with the Browns. And at the same time, I think a guy like Brissett offers a better and similar style to the quarterback that we could be seeing in the very near future of the Patriots. Wink, wink. So that scrambling slash more dynamic and versatile style of a quarterback play is something that Brissett can offer. Obviously, he's been in the system before. The fans know him. The fans loved him when he was here. Bring him back 1 year. Experienced guy. Not going to go out there and lose his games either. So at the end of the day, that leaves us with $18,585,335 in cap space. That I feel like is enough to sign all of our draft picks.
It
It's
is.
going to be close, but I think it'll be
You'll still
enough.
have you'll have about 3.5 million left if my numbers are right.
So, what are your reactions to these signings, Chandler?
I think that the guard call is interesting. As we'll see, wouldn't waste my money on an interior guard. Not that it's a waste, but this is a fairly strong draft class for that if that's something you want. As well as we already invested a lot of draft capital last year in Mafia and Sao. I don't expect us to do that in back-to-back years.
Hmm.
So that is one of the things I stand on that for. Brissett, very interesting pick for a quarterback. Definitely is similar to quarterbacks that we think might be the next, the after the bridge, the other side of the bridge. Wink, wink. Odell, very interesting pick. That might be a timeline issue for me, based on what he's going to give to us versus what we need for the future. But I think probably the best way is just to hop into mine to get your or what finish this one so I can get my real reactions.
Yeah, let's dive into yours, Chandler, without further ado. All right, Chandler, here we are. Your beautiful slideshow already. I love it.
Oh yeah.
Let's see it.
Open talk back for you. Just chime in whenever you'd like. I'm just gonna hop right into it. Look at my little GM Chandler Betts right here. Starting off, our cap space before free agency and the draft is 101.7 million. It's the most in the NFL. And after the draft pick contracts, before any kind of trades, it's $87,455,640 to be precise. According to this is all of my numbers are according to Over the Cap, which is the most reliable site that we can use as the public. A trade? What? We're making a trade? Crazy. The trade that I made, I was looking for a Mac Jones trade partner. The Broncos are an interesting one. The one that made the most sense to me, because there's no expectation for him to start. I don't think that he's in a position mentally to be able to start right now. It's the Rams. Let him sit behind Matt Stafford in the same way that Carson Wentz did. See what there is. If you can fix him, if anybody can fix him, it's probably Sean McVay. I think that that's the right trade. I've seen a lot of rumors about it being up to a fifth. I couldn't stomach taking a fifth from a team for that past season of Mac Jones. So I did a sixth. But if it is a fifth, that just slightly changes the money. It only changes it less. It's less than $400,000 change. So as we'll see at the end, that money is still available. We can go all the way up to a third, like you were talking about, and the cap still works for my situation. I think it's a sixth, though. The trade saves 2.7, 2.8 million. But we have to also factor in the money that pick 191 holds, cap hit of roughly 850,000. So our current cap now, I'm not going to read it every time. That's our net change and our current cap right there.
Yeah, I made that mistake of reading everything every time.
Yeah, pre-free agency cuts. Marco Wilson, I wanted to keep him. There were teams that were in contention for him. I think that I wouldn't be stunned if we do keep him. That was way too much money for me to keep, though. He's gone. LaMichael Petway, a lot of these people are teamers that are squad players that never played a single snap for the Patriots in this past season. LaMichael Petway, Andrew Stuber, Michael Jordan, not a basketball player, TJ Luther, Pawan Baker, JaMychal Hasty, Tristan Hill, Daniel Aquale, Joe Giles Harris, Chad Ryland, goodbye. I think
Wow.
we need to get a better kicker. Connor McDermott, Azizi Hearn, and then Vidarian Lowe, who I actually almost kept as much crap as I've given him throughout the course of the year. I almost kept, but he is gone. That gives us a new cap of 105 million, which brings us above where we were before, including all the draft picks. This should very comfortably be the number one in the league. Resignings. Oh, Kyle Duggar. Now, long story short, the way that I built these contracts is I factored in the inflation of the contracts throughout the course of the year. I did a 1.05 rate, so a 5% interest rate for the contract, and then did a little bit of rough rounding, a little bit of brute
Jeez.
force math. Yeah, it took a little bit of time, but I built these contracts in a way that the NFL salary cap, if this is me, I did this math in like December for this part of what I'm going to say. I believe that the salary cap grows on average like 8%, 9% a year. So if you can get people on a contract of 5% a year, it's just like the real world and real money in the sense that the purchasing power of each dollar is less. So like the contract in 2025, if you can see me circling this, will be less relative because this contract has only grown by 5%, while the salary cap has grown by 8%. So we are allowing ourselves to have more flexibility in this. I'm
In the
actually
bank.
that I have to go to right after this meeting where we're learning about this a little bit. So interesting, but I've been doing this for a little bit before the class. So enough to talk about that. Kyle Duggar specifically, 454 made sense to me. 29 guaranteed. This is an absolute key. We did the transition tag on him, but that just gives us the opportunity to have exclusive conversations with him and the right to match any contracts. Think of it as essentially a restricted free agent in basketball. That's basically what this is. He's a very important keep. He's one of the best players on our team. I think we had him at like 2 or 3 for the best players of the season this past year. Have to keep him. Mike Onwenu. This is my Mike Onwenu contract. I can understand if it's a little bit more, but I thought 4 for 59.5 was really good for him, especially with 35 guaranteed. I'd be more than willing to make that go up to 40 guaranteed, even to entice him to take it, to make sure that it's all there. But Onwenu, you have to keep him. You really have to kind of just, he can name his price. It's sounding like we're not going to, though. But, you know, in this world, I'm the GM, not Elliot Wolf. So I make the decisions and we're keeping him. So there we
Promote
go.
Chandler.
Yeah, exactly. Get me in there. Hunter Henry. I kind of didn't want to get Hunter Henry, but also I realized with a rookie quarterback, wink, wink, you want to have that kind of safety net. And Hunter Henry is excellent at that. He's proven himself to be able to produce in a frankly not good offense and still be consistent. He's a consistent blocker as well, which will come into play with another tight end that I signed, or 2 other tight ends that I signed, I suppose.
Whoa.
Yeah, one in-house, one out-of-house.
Oh,
3 years, 35. That's a bit high, a bit rich for my blood, but at the same time, we have to remember the Patriots stink right now, so you have to pay a little bit more money to get these players to come in. 15 guaranteed as well. I kind of want to give him a 1 year, but give him the chance. He can finish his career as a Patriot at this point, or he'll have 1 more year in his career roughly to go ring chase if he'd like to. Hopefully, we'll be at the point in 3 years in his last year that we're competing for some kind of division championship or a wild card berth. I think that's realistic, and I think that with Hunter Henry, we can do that. Anthony Jennings, roughly the same idea as you. I went a little bit lower in the contract, 3 for 15.5. I think this is about right. He's not going to be as valued by other teams, I don't think, and I think that he'll want to have a little bit of loyalty to Gerard Mayo in the same way another player I'll talk about will. A lot of production. Uche, spoiler alert, is not staying. I think that whatever they pay for him is going to be way too much, considering he had an especially not good season this year. And Jennings, and again, another player I will talk about, more than filled in his shoes. Our defense was good. Keep Anthony Jennings, promote him to being the downing, every down starter, because he can play every down, and Uche can't, simply. It's also just better bang for your buck. Here's the other one, Mac Wilson. Mac Wilson Sr., big fan of his career resurgence here, shifting from middle linebacker, from some kind of middle field player to becoming more of an edge rusher. Big credit to Mayo and Steve Belichick for that. I think this is going to be a big player for the next team, or for the next era of the team. He's going to be very important. I think that he's going to have that kind of loyalty, as we've talked about in Matt Pylon in the past, about how much praise Mac Wilson has had for Gerard Mayo specifically. This makes too much sense to me. 3 years, keep him down long term. Realistically, this 3-year contract is more like a 2-year contract. If you look at the dead money right there, you can cut him with essentially no penalty going into the 3rd year. But in my mind, he's going to be good enough that we're going to want to keep him for the entire contract. Miles Bryant, 3 for 26. It's a lot of money for somebody who wasn't quite as good last year, but this is roughly where his PFF contract projection is. I think that this makes a lot of sense. I think that you want to keep that cornerback room, as we've talked about. You want to keep it fairly intact, excluding JC Jackson. Miles Bryant, I have given him a lot of crap over the years, specifically in 2019, 2020. But gosh, he was good this year. He was really good. And I'm excited that we have the opportunity to keep him for 3 years. And then these are the other ones, the 1 years, Christian Ellis, the 795s are what's called an exclusive rights free agent. Basically, you have the exclusive rights to talk to him. Again, it's restricted free agency, basically. Christian Ellis, a good teamer. Nathan Rourke, I wouldn't have kept him, but it's already been announced that we kept him as an ERFA. Alex Austin, big fan. We've talked about how big fans we are of what he's done at the end of last season. Rager for that minimum years service is how it works. I can share that with people who like. It's on Spotrac if you want to see that. 1 for 125, 125 I should say. Pharaoh Brown, my other tight end, for the same thing, and then Kendrick Bourne. That's the key right there. 1 for 10. I said 1 because I think that he's going to want to do what Juju did in Kansas City, in having that prove it year, and he's going to want to bet on himself because he's, how old is he? 27, I would guess, 28?
27.
27.
I think it's 27.
This next contract that he's going to sign after this one is going to be his last big contract. He wants to have that prove it year with a new quarterback, a new offense, and then be able to produce well, which I believe he will, and then go out and get that 3-year, $39 million contract. Will it be in New England? That'll be later to be seen. But I think this is the perfect deal for him and the perfect deal for New England as well. Cap update, we've got 37.3 left. I'm going to press
Yeah,
on.
keep going.
What do you got? Here, free agents. 2 right here. Joe Flacco. But he's not going to be a starter long term because he's only here for 1 year. He's going to be the bridge quarterback, the mentor. I think that it doesn't, for me, I understand that you've talked with him. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense for me for Joe Flacco to stay in Cleveland. He's not going to start. They already fired AVP, Alex Van Pelt, the now Patriots offensive coordinator, because they want to get somebody specifically for Deshaun Watson, or at least that's what the scholarship is talking about. Flacco is AVP's guy right now. I think it makes a whole lot of sense to bring him in. He's going to be good. He's going to give us the chance to develop our players and win games. Simple as that. I think it's a great shout. Next up, AJ Dillon. This is mine. I'm not bringing back Ezekiel Elliott because I think, not because he doesn't deserve to be brought back, but I believe that he's going to want to go to a contender. And I think that he's earned himself the right to do that. This contract for AJ Dillon is essentially the same thing that Zeke did. Just, of course, AJ Dillon is a significantly smaller name than Zeke was at the point. He's excellent. He's got history at Boston College. Bring him home. He's from Connecticut. I think that he's going to have a career resurgence. He's always been behind Aaron Jones. He did have a tough season this year. I believe 11% was his touch to touchdown rate inside the 10, which is like the lowest in the NFL for people with certain groups. But I do believe there's still a very, very talented player in there. And I think that could be a nice comparison with Ramondre, and then probably a drafted scat back in a later round, maybe like a Dylan Laub out of New Hampshire.
I like that pick, actually, that pickup. Oh, Isaiah Simmons.
My guy had to do it. There are a couple of my guys in this one. He's available. He is a weapon. I'd be playing him at some kind of free safety sub linebacker mix right here. You have Marte Mapu, who is basically a not as good Isaiah Simmons. And I love Marte Mapu as well. You get both of them? I mean, come on. You want to have as many weapons on both sides of the ball as possible. That's what Isaiah Simmons is. He's a weapon. He's played his snap count. Look at if you ever get just curious, look up his snap count by position in Arizona when they were actually using him right. He was playing edge rusher. He was playing free safety. He was playing slot corner. He was playing linebacker. He's just a football player, and that's what Belichick says about Julian Edelman. He says, "You're a ball player. We'll figure out where we put you. We'll figure out how to use you." That's what somebody has to be able to do with Isaiah Simmons, and we should be the people to do it.
Mm.
Take his potential, make him into the Pro Bowl caliber player he is more than capable of being. That I see every time I see him play. Noah Fant, another one of my guys. Here is somebody who he and TJ Hawkinson were the two tight ends together in Iowa. He is very talented. He's improved a lot as a blocker. He's going to get undervalued because that past offense in Seattle where he was had three top tight ends in Parkinson, I believe was one, Disley, and Fant. Fant didn't get as many touches, but when he had his touches, he made the most of them. He's a very talented player. This is a long-term tight end option. He is what Gesicki could have been. He's going to be excellent. If we can bring him in, I would be pumped. The big one, Tyron Smith,
There it
is our left tackle.
Wow, a lot less money than I had.
Yeah, I think this is probably, again, I'm going off of what the projections are. This is roughly what it's going to be. I think that he is going to be the left tackle. Also, I think that he will probably mentor a younger left tackle that we will draft in a third or fourth round. That would be my guess, especially in a deep tackle class. This makes a lot of sense. He's going to protect our young quarterback, wink, wink, and Joe Flacco's not young. Love you, Joe. So big pickup here. I think this is roughly what it's going to be, simply because of his age. He's 34. I think that realistically, this is going to it's going to be he either stays in Dallas for 10 or he goes 2 for 28, try to extend his career a little bit, try to extend his pay window. Here we go. The last one, Cameron Dicker. We need a kicker. Dicker the kicker was one of the most efficient kickers in the league this past year. He's a weapon. He's very good. He's also very funny online. I like him. But we've seen how important it is to have a kicker. Let's spend a little money on one. Let's bring him in. Let's let him kick. Let's let him cook. That puts us at a final cap remaining of $1,739,209 with a depth chart looking like this. And that's our draft capital with the monetary value of each pick. Talk to me, Nick.
I like it. I mean, that's a great O-line. Similar to how I structured. I'm a little bit shocked that you didn't go with more offensive talents. I mean, obviously I can see their wide receiver one draft. That's very likely. Don't get me wrong. I think you and I both are going to lean more towards quarterbacks in the first round, as if you will see later this week in our mock draft episode. Make sure to check that out when it comes out. But regardless, still opportunities to get wide receivers throughout the draft. Noah Fant was interesting. I did like it, but it was a little bit interesting. I love the Isaiah Simmons pickup. In terms of defense, our defense stayed pretty much the same. I think you were right about Miles Bryant. I think he's going to cost more money than what I was implying. Moving on from Chad Ryland is something that I believe is inevitable, but I think we'll give him a chance in the first 3 games of the season. But regardless, could very much work out that he's gone this offseason. But overall, I liked your picks. I love Joe Flacco, so I'd love to see him bring him in. I just picked.
There was one more thing that I was looking at or there are two more that I was very curious. I almost did. I almost cut Tyquan Thornton. Would have just been to clear up a roster spot to go get another wide receiver in the draft. And I almost cut Devon Godchaux. 8.5. It's a lot of money to save. Or could probably not cut him, actually, probably trade him.
Yeah, trade him to save that money.
Trade for him. Something to look at. I didn't do it, but it's definitely something to look at. If the price is right, I would have no objection to doing so.
And also, I mean, I was thinking about cutting Taekwon too, but I was just not willing to eat the dead cap that he was going to give up. It was like more
I
than
have a
what we would
stance on it.
save.
This will be the last thing that I say. Dead
Yeah,
cap doesn't matter. Be sober for real. Dead cap doesn't matter.
that's fair.
Like if you are saving more money, like the reason I didn't cut Tyquan Thornton, the reason that I didn't cut Devontae Parker is the cap savings is what matters. The cap savings for Devontae Parker, say it was, I think it was like 1.1 or something. If it's 1.1, yes. You're not going to get a better player for 1.1. That's how you have to look at it. Are you going to get a better player for the amount that you're clearing? And for Tyquan Thornton, it was less than a minimum salary, so I wasn't going to do it. A trade though, it's possible that we trade him. See if like Carolina wants him. I couldn't figure out the right trade for that, but Carolina's a place that makes a lot of sense for me.
Yeah, well, regardless, that's our dream off season, Chandler. As we look, March 13th is the big date when free agency begins. So stay tuned here on the At the Pylon podcast for a full episode recapping free agency after it happens. But for now, that will conclude our plans. Alongside Chandler Betts, my name is Nick Antonakis. We'll see you back here later this week for a first round mock draft here on the At the Pylon podcast.